Hey, great to have you here. So back today with another SH Figuarts Dragon Ball video. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Super Saiyan Blue or the Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Gogeta. I figure why not look back once again into my collection and share something that I have in case maybe you figure you want to pick up in the future. So let's take a look at Gogeta, starting off with the box here. So pretty cool overall first visual aesthetic here with him looking very intimidating. It appears he just like transformed into Gogeta and he's ready for battle there. So great cover there. Your typical just plain name right there on that side. Then on the back we get some action poses. So we see him, looks like he's preparing for battle once again there. Has some action poses. You see him with a little bit of variety as far as his headpieces. Charging a Kamehameha. And once again, the Broly pose there. I'll share Broly here to kind of show a size comparison. I meant to do that in my prior video with Broly, but from this side, not a whole lot. I've noticed some of these boxes looking back, like this is a decent picture, but they're showing off things. I'm not sure what the intent is. It's just supposed to show off stuff that's part of the figure, but I feel like they're really weird pictures. Like this one, it's just like his shoulder blade right there, and then this one's just like his little hip piece. It feels like very odd. Like going back to the Broly one, for example, it feels super strange. Some of the ones they have on here, like I know that's the fur piece he has, but that's just like the back of his head. Just very odd, and there's just like his hand there. Some of these choices for these photos feel very strange, but either way, that's not a major factor for the figure, obviously. So doing a quick size comparison, speaking of that Broly, here is Broly in comparison to Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. Since these are two figures you may want to match up against each other on your shelf, you can see how much larger Broly is overall. Gogeta is kind of your typical SH Figuarts average size. He's your typical like standard base Goku size. So from there, you can just see how large Broly is in comparison. So with that, we'll leave Broly off to the side and really focus on Gogeta from here on in this review. So as I did in the previous review, we're gonna cover three areas. I call it like the 3 A's, if you will. So the accessories, the aesthetic, and the articulation. So let's start off with the accessories here. So we have him in the body. I have him in here with just his karate hand on one side and then on the other side as well. And then just the smiling face. I feel like that's a good Gogeta face, just kind of being a little bit cocky, not fully like Vegito cocky, but a little bit of an arrogance with that mix of Goku and Vegeta in him. So looking at the accessories that we do have here, we have a little bit more than what we have with Broly. So sorry, I'm trying to grab these over here. Let's grab the first headpiece here. We have the first headpiece, just kind of a neutral face, so not a whole lot to call out there, just your average standard looking face. And then we showed this one on the back, but kind of your Kamehameha powering up face, just doing some kind of blast attack, I would say, with that one. And then really cool inclusion, I'm glad they did this, but we have a whole separate headpiece also for the powered down version of him. So separate headpiece with the face. Obviously it makes sense, you couldn't have just the face piece because the colors wouldn't match up, but glad they gave us a powered down version. A lot of times these days, when they give us other versions of characters, they'll sell them as separate figures. Like we have Super Saiyan God Goku, then we have Super Saiyan Blue Goku. So there's so many varieties that they like to kind of double up on selling. So I'm glad for this specific figure they chose to combine those into one. I know we don't have a regular Super Saiyan here, but that wasn't relevant for this specific character. So from there, we have going on to the hands, we have the two fists. So mostly standard hands, I would say, when it comes to the rest of these. We have our, I should have grabbed these out of here before popping in. We have our kind of more grippy hands. These are kind of your Kamehameha hands, probably, if you will, with kind of combining those. The ones I have on him, as I said, are more the martial artist, like fighting pose hands as opposed to the beam attack hands. And then finally, we have the open palm ones. So if you're gonna do some other kind of beam attack, it's just the open palm hands. So that's it for accessories. Not a whole lot that comes with him. A little bit more than Broly, but I think we get, for the most part, what we need. Having that other headpiece is nice. It'd be nice if we would have gotten some kind of blast attack, some kind of Kamehameha or something. I feel like maybe they've given us plenty of those in the past, so maybe they didn't need to put one here, but it would have been nice to include one. So overall, if I'm giving a score for accessories, I'll probably go like a 6 out of 10. I think it's above average because they do include the power down version of him. We only have one face option, but I think that's fine. If they gave us some kind of beam attack, I think it would have been a few points higher, but for now, I'm gonna go 6 out of 10 for accessories. Then when it comes to aesthetic, I think they did a pretty solid job, if I'm being honest. I mean, there's some of the, you can see some of like the lines here a little bit not the cleanest on this guy, but I think they capture him for the most part. There's a little bit of gapping in my chest. Maybe I can drop him down a little bit. Yeah, that fixes that a little bit. But overall, I think aesthetic really works. And he definitely captures the figure form of the character from the movie. So yeah, that's a pretty good shot of him, head on his face. And then as I mentioned, here's some of the other faces if you want to kind of look comparison-wise of what we have here. So aesthetic, I'm gonna give it a pretty strong rating. I'm gonna say it's not as like amazing as Broly, probably because Broly has that shelf presence just because of how large he is. I feel like the larger figures are always more fun to have on your shelf. You don't want to have a ton of them because they won't be unique anymore, but for this Gogeta specifically, I'll probably go somewhere between an 8 or 9. Maybe we'll say 9 out of 10 because I think he overall works pretty well as far as the aesthetic of representing the Gogeta. I don't know what else you could really have done much beyond that, so we'll say we'll round up and say 9 out of 10 for the aesthetic. And when it comes to articulation, so let's take a look at this guy. You get a pretty good range turning left or right on his head. Up and down pretty good as well. You can't go back super far because the back of the hair catches on that like almost like back piece. He almost looks like a linebacker where you have that little back brace or that neck brace. So it catches a little bit there by having this chunk of plastic. So that's a little bit limiting, restrictive there. And as far as the shoulders, they have the shoulder pieces though, or the pop-off ones. These are kind of what they did, I think, with like Turles, where they had the Saiyan armor that popped backwards. It's a little bit like that, but it's a different type of piece. Decent articulation. You can't get, as much to the side as you would like necessarily, but definitely goes all the way around. And then elbow, a little bit. It's probably about a 90-degree angle there. Wrists are pretty solid. I know sometimes the wrists can be very stiff on them. This one's also pretty good over here. And then when it comes to the body, you can see obviously that gapping isn't the greatest, but you can obviously push him down a little bit and he gets a little bit of twisting. I know a lot of these guys don't have the best twisting sometimes at the waist piece, but he can bend down a decent amount. Bending back maybe a little bit harder for him to do. And then when it comes to the legs, pretty solid articulation there for the splits. That's probably as far as you really need to go. The knees, I think that looks overall pretty good. It's a little bit chunky here in comparison, but I think at least aesthetically it looks fine. It's just some gaps on the top and the bottom of that knee. Then the leg, it's a little bit stiff because this boot piece is like a solid piece, so it's not able to be moved around. So it's really from down here that you can move it. It's similar, I think, to like the Vegetas where they have his boots and the boots are kind of like stuck in between that little hollow piece. These are a little bit better because they're not as like flimsy on the little pegs that Vegeta has, but there's a decent amount of rotation there to get him on a stretching pose there. And then obviously you can turn around. Toe articulation's great there too as well. So, I mean, overall for articulation, I think he does pretty much as good as you can expect, especially on a 2.0 mold. So I imagine we'll probably get an updated version of some form of Gogeta in the future. Maybe it'll be the Super Saiyan version from the Z side of things. But yeah, I think that's not too bad for articulation. I'm probably gonna give him, we'll say probably like an 8 out of 10 for articulation. So pretty solid overall, I would give him, just because he doesn't do anything exceptionally well, but he doesn't do anything super poorly, I would say. His upper body, at least for me, is probably the stiffer side of things. You can get his arm out there, but you're meeting some restrictions at some point. So yeah, we'll say 8 out of 10 for the articulation for this guy. So that puts, what did I say, the accessories a 6 out of 10, aesthetic a 9, and the articulation 8. Overall, I think this guy is a good figure to have in your collection. I still think Broly is probably the stronger case to have, but they are such a good tandem pair that I have both of them included. I don't think you can go wrong with choosing that. I'm gonna give this guy overall an 8 out of 10. So pretty strong release, especially for the price point, at least at the time. I feel like he was around like 50, 60 bucks. Probably getting more crazy with the prices they've had on figures recently, but I think this guy works overall and is definitely a cool figure to have in your collection. if you're able to grab him at some point. Maybe they'll do a re-release. I haven't seen one of him recently. I picked this guy up. It's probably been, I don't know, 3 years, so years at this point in time. But yeah, he's just one that I would definitely have in your collection, especially if you're gonna have him standing alongside Broly and having them fight against each other. So what are your guys' thoughts? Is this a Gogeta that you have? Is this one that you're interested in picking up? Are you gonna wait for maybe a Super Saiyan from the Z side of things? Or what's kind of your overall thoughts on Gogeta? Do you like Gogeta more than Vegito? That's another question. I know we have the Vegito Blue that's currently available. That was on New York Comic Con. That's on P Bandai. Who do you like more, Vegito, Gogeta? That's a good question to ask folks as well. So overall, yeah, those are my thoughts on Gogeta. Pretty strong release and definitely one I recommend if you're able to grab this guy. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.